Do you ever wonder how much power a single phrase has over your life? Not the kind of power that makes headlines, but the quiet power that works in the background, shaping your choices, your confidence, your future. Words you repeat to yourself in silence, words you accept without noticing, words that feel small yet carry the weight of years. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you told yourself something that seemed harmless, but slowly chipped away at your courage, your hope, your fire? The truth is, most lives are not destroyed by big, obvious events. They are eroded by whispers, by sentences so ordinary that you don't even realize they are draining your energy. It's the casual remark you make to yourself before trying something new. It's the reflex phrase you say when life pushes back. These words become invisible chains, and every time you repeat them, those chains grow heavier. Without meaning to, you teach your mind to expect less, to settle, to believe that your dreams are out of reach. But here's the most important part. The chains are not locked. They only stay because you keep pulling them tighter. And the moment you see them for what they are, just phrases, just patterns, you take back your freedom. That's why staying with this message is so valuable. Because as you listen, you will begin to recognize the exact words that are stealing your strength. You'll hear the phrases that feel familiar, and you'll realize they are not harmless habits. They are silent saboteurs. Imagine how much lighter your life would feel if you stopped feeding your mind with poison disguised as comfort. Imagine stepping into each day without the weight of phrases that say you can't, you shouldn't, you'll fail anyway. Imagine replacing those with words that open doors, words that make you breathe deeper, stand taller, move faster toward what you know deep down is possible. That shift alone can change the direction of your entire life. This is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about waking up to the truth. Your thoughts create your limits, and your words create your thoughts. If you let negative phrases live unchecked in your mind, they will quietly build walls around you. But if you choose to challenge them, to replace them with language that empowers, you begin to tear down those walls one brick at a time. And behind those walls lies everything you've been craving. The confidence to act, the resilience to keep going, and the joy of knowing you are no longer trapped. So stay with this, not just out of curiosity, but out of commitment to yourself. Because in the next moments, we're going to uncover the phrases that have been silently running your life. You'll see them with fresh eyes, and once you see them, you'll never hear them the same way again. And when that happens, when the chains finally slip from your mind, you will realize the truth you've been waiting to hear. You are not powerless. You were never powerless. The words you choose are the words that choose your future. And starting today, you can choose better. One of the most destructive phrases you can ever allow into your mind is simple. That's just the way I am. It sounds harmless. It sounds like acceptance. But underneath, it's a quiet surrender. It's the moment you give up the power to change, to grow, to rewrite your own story. When you say it, you're not describing who you are. You're defining who you'll never allow yourself to become. Think about what happens when this phrase becomes your shield. Every weakness gets justified. Every fear gets permission to stay. Every limitation feels permanent. You begin to see yourself as fixed, as if you were carved in stone. But you are not stone. You are a living, breathing human being, wired with the capacity to adapt, to learn, to evolve. Neuroscience has proven that your brain can rewire itself at any age. Psychology has shown that belief in change is the first step to real transformation. So why would you let 4 simple words trap you in an identity that no longer serves you? The danger of that's just the way I am is that it removes hope before you even try. It convinces you that effort is useless, that failure is guaranteed, that growth is reserved for someone else. And once that thought takes root, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You stop pushing, you stop stretching, you stop believing, and slowly life becomes smaller, tighter, more predictable. Safe, maybe, but suffocating. Deep down, you know you're meant for more, but this phrase whispers that more is impossible. The truth is, the version of you that exists today is not the final version. You've already changed countless times. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago. You're not even the same person you were yesterday. Every experience has shaped you. Every challenge has taught you. Every choice has built you. So why would you stop now? Why would you decide that growth is over, that transformation is beyond your reach, that this is all I'll ever be? When you drop that phrase, you reclaim your power. Instead of "that's just the way I am," you begin to say, "this is where I am, and I'm capable of more." That small shift opens a door. It doesn't erase your flaws, but it removes their chains. It doesn't deny your past, but it refuses to let your past dictate your future. Suddenly, the parts of you that once felt stuck become areas of possibility. The habits that once defined you become challenges you can outgrow. The limits that once felt permanent become milestones you can surpass. And here's the reward. The moment you stop hiding behind that phrase, you feel alive again. You begin to see that you are not trapped by identity. You are guided by intention. You realize that growth is not about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering the stronger, braver, wiser version of who you already are. The walls you thought were permanent begin to crumble. The excuses you once clung to lose their grip. And in their place rises a new belief, one that fuels every step you take. You are not fixed. You are fluid. You are not finished. You are unfolding. And the person you are becoming is greater than the person you've ever been. Another phrase that quietly steals your strength is, "I'll start tomorrow." At first, it feels harmless, even logical. You tell yourself you're giving time, creating space, waiting for the right moment. But what really happens is that you hand your power over to a day that doesn't exist yet. Tomorrow becomes a hiding place, a place where your dreams wait in silence, and every time you delay, the gap between who you are and who you want to be grows wider. Psychologists call this the illusion of future self. You imagine that the version of you who wakes up tomorrow will be stronger, more disciplined, more motivated than the version of you today. But here's the truth. Tomorrow, you will still be you. The same habits, the same fears, the same excuses. Nothing changes just because the clock moves forward. What changes is you deciding to act now. When you cling to "I'll start tomorrow," you trick yourself into believing you've made progress, when in reality, you've only made promises. And promises without action are just another way of saying no to yourself. The weight of this phrase is not just in the delay, but in the pattern it creates. Each time you say it, you strengthen procrastination. You condition your brain to expect escape routes instead of decisions. The more you wait, the more comfortable waiting feels, until days blur into weeks. Weeks slip into months, and dreams that once burned inside you cool into ashes. You don't notice the loss at first, but eventually you look back and realize that tomorrow stole years you can never get back. The mind loves comfort. It whispers that starting later will be easier. But ease is a lie. Starting tomorrow doesn't make things easier. It makes them harder, because with every delay, resistance grows stronger. The action you avoid becomes heavier, scarier, more distant. The courage you could have built today weakens, and when tomorrow finally arrives, it demands even more from you than it would have yesterday. This is how the phrase keeps you stuck. It convinces you that waiting is relief, when in truth, waiting is a burden that multiplies. The antidote is simple but powerful. Start now, even if it's small. Not perfect, not complete, not polished. Just start it. The moment you take action today, you break the cycle. You teach your brain that change begins in the present, not in some imagined future. You discover momentum, and momentum is more powerful than motivation, because once you move, even in tiny steps, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who delays and begin to see yourself as someone who decides. And that change, repeated day after day, is how transformation is built. There is freedom in realizing you don't need to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment doesn't exist. What exists is the choice you make right now. Every dream, every goal, every breakthrough begins not with tomorrow, but with today. So the next time you hear that phrase rise in your mind, "I'll start tomorrow," recognize it for what it is, a trap dressed as comfort, and refuse it. Replace it with "I'll start now," because now is the only ground you stand on. Now is the only time you own. And now is the only place your future can truly begin. Another phrase that silently eats away at your potential is, "I don't have time." On the surface, it feels like a statement of fact. Life is busy. Responsibilities pile up. Demands compete for every second. But beneath the surface, this phrase is not about time, it's about priority. When you say you don't have time, what you're really saying is, "I don't see this as important enough." And when that becomes the story you tell yourself, you give away your power to choose how your life is lived. Every person on this planet is given the same 24 hours. The difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck is not time, it's choice. The truth is, you always make time for what you truly value. If something matters deeply, you find a way. If it doesn't, you find an excuse. And when I don't have time becomes your excuse, you slowly convince yourself that your goals, your dreams, your health, your growth are optional. They slide to the bottom of the list until one day you realize the list is gone and so is the opportunity. The danger is not just in lost hours, but in the mindset it creates. By repeating this phrase, you train your mind to see yourself as a victim of time rather than the master of it. You let circumstances dictate your actions instead of directing your own focus. You build the belief that life is happening to you, not through you. And when you give away that kind of power, you settle for less than what you're capable of. But here is the liberating truth. The moment you stop saying, I don't have time, you begin to see that time has always been yours. The question is not whether you have enough, it's whether you are using it with intention. A single hour invested in growth can reshape your future more than 100 hours wasted in distraction. 10 minutes of consistent effort every day can transform your body, your mind, your relationships. It's not about how much you have, it's about how much you choose to honor. The mind loves to exaggerate busyness. It convinces you that there's no space left, no margin to breathe. But if you examine closely, you'll see hidden moments everywhere. The time you spend scrolling, the time you spend worrying, the time you spend replaying doubts, these moments are not empty, they are stolen. And the thief is not life. The thief is the phrase you keep repeating to yourself. The shift happens when you replace that phrase with honesty. Instead of saying, I don't have time, say, I haven't made this a priority. At first it stings, but that sting is clarity. It forces you to ask the real question. Do I want this enough to give it my time? And if the answer is yes, you will carve out minutes, hours, days. Because the truth is, your time always follows your heart. Where your heart goes, your minutes go. Where your belief goes, your schedule bends. When you let go of, I don't have time, you take ownership, you stop letting the clock control you, and you begin controlling the clock. Suddenly your goals stop waiting for someday. They become part of today. And every time you choose to invest even a small piece of your day into what matters most, you prove to yourself that you are not powerless. You are the author of your time, and by directing it with courage, you create a life that reflects who you truly are. There is another phrase that slowly erodes your strength. It's not fair. At first, it feels justified. Life throws challenges at you that you didn't deserve. Others seem to have advantages you never had. The world looks uneven, unbalanced, and tilted against you. But every time you say it's not fair, you hand your energy to bitterness. You place yourself in the role of the powerless, and from that place, growth becomes impossible. The truth is, life is not fair, and it never will be. Some people start with more, some people face less resistance, but fairness is not the measure of your destiny. What matters is not where you begin, but what you build with what you've been given. When you anchor yourself to fairness, you anchor yourself to a world that does not exist. And the longer you wait for the scales to balance, the more time you lose to resentment instead of action. Psychology tells us that what you focus on expands. When you focus on what's unfair, you amplify anger, envy, and helplessness. Your brain begins searching for evidence of disadvantage everywhere. Every challenge feels like proof that life is stacked against you. And soon, you no longer see opportunity. You only see obstacles. That mindset doesn't just drain your energy, it blinds you to solutions that were always within your reach. But there is another way. When you drop the phrase, it's not fair, and replace it with I will find a way, everything shifts. You stop measuring your life against others and start measuring it against your own potential. You reclaim the one thing that has always belonged to you, choice. You may not control every condition, but you control your response. You control your effort. You control how much you rise after being knocked down. That choice is where your power lives. History is filled with people who were not handed fairness, yet carved greatness out of difficulty. They did not wait for equality of circumstances. They created equality of effort. They turned setbacks into strength, pain into purpose, disadvantage into drive. And you carry that same capacity within you. Every time you choose effort over envy, you prove that fairness is not the deciding factor. Faith resilience, and determination are. This shift is more than survival, it is freedom. When you stop expecting life to be fair, you stop wasting energy on what you cannot change. That energy becomes fuel for what you can. You no longer crumble when obstacles appear because you no longer see them as proof of injustice. You see them as the very ground where strength is built. And the more strength you build, the less the idea of fairness matters, because what once felt like disadvantage becomes the very reason you rise higher than you thought possible. So release the phrase. Release the idea that fairness is required for your success. Replace it with a belief that nothing is wasted, not even your hardships. Every struggle is raw material, every challenge is a tool, and every moment you choose to act despite unfairness, you build a future that is not given but earned. That is where your true freedom begins. That is where your life becomes unstoppable. Another phrase that quietly poisons your potential is, "That's impossible." It slips out quickly, often without thought. But every time you say it, you shut a door in your own mind. You declare defeat before the battle has even begun. You silence creativity, you silence courage, and you silence the very part of you designed to grow through challenge. When you tell yourself something is impossible, your brain obeys. It stops searching for solutions. It stops seeing opportunities. It moves into resignation, convincing you that effort is pointless. But neuroscience shows us that the human brain is wired for problem solving. When given a challenge, it will search endlessly for ways to adapt, to reframe, to push boundaries. The only thing that blocks that natural ability is belief. If you believe something cannot be done, you instruct your mind to quit before it even begins. Think of how many breakthroughs in history were once labeled impossible. Flight, electricity, space travel, every one of them dismissed until someone refused to accept that word. What separates those who create history from those who watch it is not talent or luck. It is the refusal to let impossible be the final answer. That refusal lives in you too. You are capable of more than you can currently measure, but you will never see it if you declare the limits before testing them. The phrase "that's impossible" doesn't only stop you from chasing big dreams. It infects your daily life. It convinces you that personal change is out of reach, that healing is beyond you, that discipline is something you will never master. It tells you that the body you want, the mindset you want, the future you want are locked away forever. And with each repetition, it carves deeper grooves of helplessness in your thinking. But here is the liberating truth. Impossible is rarely real. It is almost always perception. It feels like a wall, but most walls are paper thin. When you decide to test them, you find they crumble under persistence, creativity, and time. What feels impossible is usually just what you've never done before. And the only way to change that is to act anyway, even while fear whispers that it can't be done. When you replace "that's impossible" with "I will find a way," you unleash a different kind of energy. You give your brain permission to search, to explore, to innovate. You stop killing the spark before it ignites. Even if the goal takes longer than you thought, even if the path bends in ways you didn't expect, the act of moving forward transforms you. You become stronger, sharper, more resourceful. And often what once felt out of reach becomes the very thing that defines your growth. The reward for dropping that phrase is freedom. Freedom from the false limits your mind has been holding. Freedom from the invisible prison of doubt. Freedom to see that impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion, and opinions can be changed. The more you refuse that word, the more your life expands. The world opens, possibilities multiply, and you discover what has been true all along. Nothing is impossible until you decide to stop trying. And as long as you keep moving, there's no limit to how far you can rise. Another phrase that drains your power is, "That's just my luck." It seems harmless, almost like a joke, but underneath, it teaches you to see yourself as a victim of chance. Every setback becomes proof that the universe is against you. Every obstacle feels like confirmation that your life is destined to be harder than others. And the more you repeat it, the more you condition yourself to expect disappointment before it even arrives. The danger of this phrase is that it creates a mindset of helplessness. Psychology calls it learned helplessness, the belief that no matter what you do, the outcome won't change. When you live inside that belief, you stop trying, you stop reaching. You stop fighting for what you deserve because you've already accepted defeat. It's not the challenges that hold you back, it's the story you've told yourself about them. When you say, that's just my luck, you give away your power of interpretation. You choose to see the negative as permanent and personal. But here's the truth. Luck is not destiny. Life is not controlled by randomness. It is shaped by patterns. And patterns are created by choices. The more intentional your choices become, the less luck has to do with it. Effort, persistence, and resilience may not eliminate every obstacle, but they stack the odds in your favor. And over time, what once felt like bad luck reveals itself as unclaimed opportunity. There's a powerful shift waiting for you when you stop labeling setbacks as bad luck and start seeing them as training. Every challenge that arrives carries something with it, a lesson, a strength, a new perspective. If you choose to see it, every so-called misfortune becomes part of the foundation that makes you unshakable. What you once cursed as unfair becomes the exact thing that forged your resilience. And in hindsight, you realize it wasn't luck at all, it was preparation. The words you speak shape your identity. If you keep telling yourself you are unlucky, your brain filters the world to confirm it. You notice only the doors that close, never the ones that open. You feel only the weight of setbacks, never the momentum of progress. But when you shift your words, your brain shifts too. Say, this challenge is here to teach me. Say, this is fuel for my growth. Say, life is not happening to me. It's happening for me. Suddenly, what once looked like bad luck becomes raw material for your transformation. The reward for dropping this phrase is ownership. You stop surrendering your life to chance and start directing it with choice. You stop waiting for luck to change and start creating change through action. And as you build this mindset, you begin to notice something remarkable. The harder you work, the luckier you feel. Opportunities seem to appear more often. Progress seems to happen faster. Not because chance has shifted, but because your focus has. You're no longer chained to the story of bad luck. You are free to create a story of relentless strength. So refuse to see yourself as unlucky. Refuse to hand your power to chance. Replace that's just my luck with this is my opportunity. And every time life tests you, rise with the certainty that what comes your way is not designed to break you. It is designed to build you. That belief will carry you further than luck ever could. Another phrase that quietly steals your future is, that's not me. At first, it feels like self-awareness, like you're simply defining your personality, your style, your identity. But hidden beneath it is resistance. It is the refusal to step outside of the version of yourself you've already grown comfortable with. It sounds like truth, but in reality, it is fear disguised as certainty. When you tell yourself that's not me, you're not describing your authentic self, you're limiting it. You're drawing a border around who you think you are allowed to become. You're saying no to growth before you even test it. And that simple phrase convinces your mind that change is betrayal, that stepping into new skills, new habits, new opportunities somehow means abandoning who you are. But that's a lie. Growth does not erase you. It expands you. Human beings are designed for evolution. Your mind, your body, your spirit, they crave challenge, adaptation, and discovery. Psychology shows us that identity is not fixed. It is fluid, shaped by what you choose to do repeatedly. Every new action you take has the power to redefine what feels natural. So when you say, that's not me, what you're really saying is, I am unwilling to stretch into what could become me. And the longer you cling to that phrase, the smaller your world becomes. The danger is not just in missed opportunities, it's in the silent erosion of your confidence. Every time you refuse to act because it feels unfamiliar, you reinforce the belief that comfort equals safety. But comfort is not safety. Comfort is stagnation. And stagnation slowly eats away at your spirit. You start shrinking from challenges, avoiding risks, and convincing yourself that staying the same is enough, yet deep down you know it's not. You know there is a version of you waiting on the other side of discomfort. The truth is, every strong part of who you are today was once something you could have dismissed as not me. The skills you've built, the strengths you've developed, the victories you've earned, they all came from moments where you stretched past what was familiar. You became who you are by refusing to stay who you were. So why stop now? Why let a phrase keep you locked inside a version of yourself that was never meant to be permanent? When you replace that's not me with that could be me if I choose, you open the door to transformation. You stop seeing new opportunities as threats and start seeing them as invitations. Invitations to grow stronger, to live wider, to experience more of life. You no longer define yourself by past limitations. You define yourself by present choices. And each choice adds a new layer to the person you are becoming. The reward for dropping this phrase is expansion. You begin to see yourself as flexible, capable, limitless. You stop clinging to an outdated identity and start living in alignment with your potential. Instead of protecting a fixed self, you protect your future self by becoming more. And every time you say yes to the uncomfortable, you prove that you are not confined by who you were yesterday. You are empowered by who you are willing to become today. So refuse to shrink into the phrase, "That's not me." Refuse to let fear hide behind identity. Instead, remind yourself of the truth. You are not meant to stay the same. You are meant to evolve. And the moment you allow yourself to step into the unfamiliar, you discover that the person you thought you weren't is the person you were always meant to be. Another phrase that quietly drains your strength is, "I can't handle this." It slips out in moments of stress, when the weight feels unbearable, when the pressure seems too much to carry. And in that moment, it feels true. But every time you say it, you weaken your own foundation. You convince yourself that your capacity is capped, that your resilience has limits, that your breaking point is closer than it really is. The human mind and body are built to withstand far more than we often believe. Research in psychology shows that people consistently underestimate their own resilience. What feels like the end is often just the edge of what you've known, not the edge of what you're capable of. Yet when you repeat, "I can't handle this," you shut the door on discovering that deeper strength. You decide in advance that you are too fragile, and in doing so, you rob yourself of the chance to grow tougher through the trial. Every challenge you face carries with it not just difficulty, but potential. Hardship is the training ground for resilience. Pressure is the birthplace of strength. The moments you thought would break you often become the very moments that define you. But you can only access that transformation if you refuse to declare defeat before you've tested your limits. The phrase, "I can't handle this," turns obstacles into walls. Replacing it with, "I will get through this," turns obstacles into doors. Your nervous system responds to your words. When you say you can't handle something, your body reacts with panic. Stress hormones spike, clarity disappears, energy collapses. But when you tell yourself, "I can handle this," one step at a time, your body shifts, your breathing steadies, your focus sharpens, and your strength returns. The situation doesn't change immediately, but your power to face it does. And that shift in state is often the difference between collapse and breakthrough. It's important to remember that handling something doesn't mean loving it, enjoying it, or pretending it's easy. It means enduring, persisting, refusing to give in. You don't need to solve everything at once. You don't need to see the finish line today. All you need is the belief that you can take one more step and then another and another. This is how people endure storms that once seemed unbearable, not by denying the pain, but by refusing to let the pain decide their limits. Every time you replace "I can't handle this" with "I will find a way," you unlock a piece of yourself that was waiting for you all along. You begin to see that your capacity is far greater than your fear. You realize that every hardship survived makes you more unshakable for the next. And what once felt like a breaking point becomes a building point, the place where your inner strength multiplies. The reward for letting go of this phrase is unshakable confidence. Not confidence that life will be easy, but confidence that no matter how hard it gets, you will not crumble. You will bend, you will adapt, you will fight, and you will rise. That belief changes everything. Because when you know you can handle what comes, you no longer live in fear of what's ahead. You live with courage, ready to face anything, knowing you are stronger than you ever imagined. Another phrase that quietly sabotages your growth is, "That's good enough." At first, it sounds like contentment, a way of easing pressure, a way of saying you've done what you can. But beneath it lies something far more dangerous: resignation. Every time you tell yourself it's good enough, you are not celebrating progress. You are lowering the bar on what you know you're capable of. You are settling for less when deep down you feel the pull toward more. There is a difference between gratitude and complacency. Gratitude is powerful. It fuels joy, it strengthens perspective, it keeps you grounded. But complacency is a slow poison. When you use good enough as a shield, you protect yourself from effort, from discomfort, from the challenge of going further. You convince yourself that staying in the middle is safer than aiming higher, because aiming higher carries the risk of failure. But here's the truth. Staying in the middle is also a form of failure. It is failing by never discovering your true potential. Psychology shows that human beings thrive when they are in a state of growth. Progress is deeply tied to fulfillment. When you stop stretching, when you stop reaching for the next level, a quiet dissatisfaction begins to grow inside you. You may silence it with excuses, with distractions, with that's good enough, but it doesn't disappear. It lingers, reminding you that you were meant for more than halfway effort. The danger of this phrase is that it rewires your identity. The more you say it, the more you see yourself as someone who does just enough to get by. And identity is powerful. What you believe about yourself shapes what you attempt, how much you give, and what you expect from life. If you live by good enough, you will always stop short. But if you decide that nothing short of your best will satisfy you, you create a different identity. One that demands excellence not as perfection, but as a commitment to honoring your potential. Excellence is not about being better than others. It's about being better than you were yesterday. It's about giving yourself fully to the task at hand, not because anyone is watching, but because you refuse to dishonor the gifts you've been given. When you replace that's good enough with I can do better, you awaken a new drive inside you, a drive that refuses mediocrity, a drive that pushes past fatigue, a drive that transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary results. The reward for abandoning good enough is growth that never stops. You begin to live with pride knowing you left nothing on the table. You carry the satisfaction of someone who gave everything, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. And that satisfaction is fuel. It gives you energy, it builds your confidence, it strengthens your belief that you are capable of far more than you once imagined. So let go of the phrase that chains you to mediocrity. Refuse to settle for almost, for halfway, for barely there. Choose instead to demand more of yourself, not out of pressure, but out of respect. Respect for your potential. Respect for your dreams. Respect for the life you know you were created to live. And when you make that choice, you will find that good enough was never enough for you. Greatness was always waiting. Another phrase that quietly limits your life is, that's not realistic. It disguises itself as wisdom, as maturity, as practicality. But most of the time, it is fear in a suit of logic. It's the language of a mind trying to protect itself from risk, from failure, from the unknown. And while it may sound smart, it quietly kills possibility. Every time you declare something unrealistic, you shut the door before life even has the chance to surprise you. The problem is not that you think about reality, it's that you confuse reality with limitation. Reality is not fixed. Reality bends to effort, to innovation, to persistence. What once seemed unrealistic to generations before you is now everyday life. The airplane, the internet, cures for diseases, all of these were dismissed as unrealistic until someone refused to accept that label. When you repeat the phrase, you align yourself with doubt rather than discovery. You side with the fear of failure instead of the possibility of transformation. Psychology reveals that self-imposed limits often come not from ability but from belief. When you decide something isn't realistic, your brain stops searching for strategies and solutions. It shuts down creativity, resourcefulness, and courage. You stop asking, how could this be possible? And instead conclude, it never will be. That single mental shift determines whether your dreams expand or evaporate. The truth is, what people call unrealistic is often just unfamiliar. It's not that it cannot be done, it's that it has not been done by you yet. Growth always feels unrealistic at first because it requires you to step into a version of yourself you haven't met. And if you keep waiting for it to feel realistic before you begin, you will wait your entire life. The phrase that's not realistic doesn't just kill big dreams. It creeps into the small ones. It convinces you that waking up earlier isn't realistic for you, that building discipline isn't realistic, that changing your habits isn't realistic. Slowly, you begin lowering expectations, not because you can't achieve them, but because you've convinced yourself they don't belong to you. And in doing so, you shrink your future down to the size of your doubts. But when you replace the phrase with what if it is possible, you ignite a different energy. Suddenly, your mind starts working for you instead of against you. You begin asking new questions, searching for new strategies, seeing opportunities where before you only saw dead ends. That curiosity unlocks persistence. That persistence builds momentum. And momentum is what turns the unrealistic into the undeniable. The reward for refusing this phrase is a life of expansion. You stop living inside the cage of practicality and start testing the edges of your true potential. You stop filtering your dreams through fear and start filtering them through faith. And as you act on them, you discover that reality is not a wall, but clay, molded by those who dare to push against it. So abandon the idea that realistic is the measure of what you can become. Refuse to let fear hide behind the mask of logic. Choose instead to see every dream as possible, even if it looks impossible now. Because the moment you give yourself permission to pursue what feels unrealistic, you awaken the part of you that was born not to live small, but to stretch beyond limits, to create, to rise, and to prove that reality belongs to those who refuse to accept its boundaries. One more phrase that silently steals your strength is, "That's just who I am." It sounds harmless, even confident, but beneath it is a deep surrender. It is the voice of someone who has accepted limitation as identity. Every time you say it, you carve walls around yourself and declare them permanent. You decide that your flaws are fixed, your struggles unchangeable, your growth impossible. And nothing is more dangerous than believing that the person you are today is the final version of who you can be. Human beings are not statues. We are not carved in stone. We are living, breathing, evolving creations designed for growth. Neuroscience proves it. The brain is plastic, capable of rewiring itself with new habits, new skills, new patterns of thought. The body adapts, the mind expands, the spirit strengthens. Yet when you whisper, "That's just who I am," you deny this truth. You close the door on transformation and accept stagnation as your destiny. This phrase often disguises itself as self-acceptance, but true self-acceptance is very different. Accepting yourself means acknowledging where you are while still believing in where you can go. It means loving yourself enough to not stay the same. But "that's just who I am" is not love. It is fear, fear of change, fear of failure, fear of letting go of the comfort of familiarity, even when that comfort is keeping you stuck and the cost is high. The moment you define yourself by limitation, your choices follow. If you say, "I'm just not disciplined," you never build the habits that could transform your life. If you say, "I'm just not confident," you never step into the situations that will grow your strength. If you say, "I'm just not lucky," you never notice the opportunity standing right in front of you. Your words become self-fulfilling prophecies, binding you tighter each time you repeat them. But the truth is, you are not a fixed identity. You are a work in progress. Every day, every decision, every action adds a brushstroke to the canvas of your character. Who you are is not a sentence written in stone, but a story still being written. The question is not, "Who am I?" The question is, "Who am I becoming?" When you change that question, everything shifts. Psychology teaches that identity is malleable. What you do consistently reshapes what you believe about yourself. Action comes first, and identity follows. If you begin showing up as disciplined, you start to see yourself as disciplined. If you begin speaking with courage, you start to see yourself as courageous. If you begin practicing persistence, you start to see yourself as unstoppable. You become the evidence of who you want to be. The reward for rejecting this phrase is freedom. The freedom to rewrite your story at any moment. You no longer carry the weight of old labels. You no longer chain yourself to mistakes from your past. You give yourself permission to evolve, to outgrow, to rise. And with that permission comes power. The power to choose who you will become. The power to no longer shrink beneath limitation, but to step boldly into transformation. So release the phrase that locks you into yesterday's version of yourself. Refuse to say, "That's just who I am." Say instead, "I am becoming," because you are not finished. You are not stuck. You are not defined by what was. You are defined by what you are willing to become. And that truth alone is enough to ignite the fire of change. Another phrase that chips away at your potential is, "I don't have time." At first, it feels like a simple statement of fact, a reflection of a busy life, a crowded schedule, or endless responsibilities. But beneath the surface, it becomes an excuse that robs you of control. Every time you say it, you hand your power over to circumstances. You declare that your life is dictated by the clock instead of by your choices. And slowly, without even noticing, You begin to live reactively instead of intentionally. The truth is that time is not something you have or don't have. It is something you make. It is something you shape. It is a reflection of your priorities. The same 24 hours are given to everyone, yet the way they are used determines whether a life drifts or transforms. When you say, I don't have time, what you are really saying is, it's not a priority. And if your growth, your health, your dreams, your future are not a priority, then what is? Psychology proves that the brain adapts to the meaning we give our words. If you tell yourself you don't have time, your mind stops searching for solutions, stops looking for opportunities. It accepts helplessness. But when you instead declare, I will make time, your mind begins to reorganize. It scans for openings. It reorders priorities. It activates creativity. The shift in language is the shift from victim to leader of your own life. The danger of this phrase is not just the lost minutes. It is the lost years. When you put off action today, telling yourself you'll start when life slows down, you build a habit of postponing, and the habit of postponing becomes the pattern of a lifetime. Suddenly years have passed, and the things you once dreamed of doing are no closer. The time you thought you didn't have is gone, and so is the opportunity it carried. But imagine if instead of surrendering to the clock, you took ownership of it. Imagine if you decided that every moment you spend is a choice, and that those choices will either build the future you want or bury it. Imagine if you replaced I don't have time with I choose how to use my time. That single shift breaks the illusion of helplessness and reminds you that every day you are in control of what matters most. The reward for the shift is freedom. Freedom from the guilt of wasted hours. Freedom from the weight of procrastination. Freedom from living a life where everything urgent suffocates what is important. You begin to reclaim your energy, your clarity, and your momentum. And with that momentum, your dreams stop being wishes on the horizon and start becoming realities you are building step by step. So refuse to let this phrase steal another day from you. Stop telling yourself you don't have time. You do. You always did. It is not a question of hours, but of priorities. Decide today that your growth, your health, your relationships, your dreams are worth the time. Decide that your life is too valuable to waste on excuses. And when you choose to own your time, you discover that you were never powerless. You were simply one decision away from taking control. Another phrase that quietly drains your strength is, it's too late. It slips out softly, carrying the weight of regret, convincing you that the window has closed, that opportunities have passed, that your moment is gone. But the truth is, nothing destroys possibility faster than believing it's already over before you even try. That belief turns the clock into a prison and convinces you that your best days are behind you. This phrase is powerful because it plays on fear. Fear of wasted years, fear of missed chances, fear of being behind. And yet what matters is not the time you've lost, but the time you still have. The danger of saying it's too late is that you stop before you begin. You rob yourself of the miracles that can happen in the years, months, even days still ahead. History is filled with people who started later, who refused to accept that lie, who proved that new beginnings are not tied to age, but to decision. Psychology reveals that when people believe they are too late, they experience what is called learned helplessness. It is the mindset of surrender, the belief that no action will matter anymore. But this belief is false. Every action matters. Every step you take today has the power to create change tomorrow. The only reason people say it's too late is because they've confused delay with defeat. Delay is not defeat. Delay is simply a detour that can still lead you to where you want to go. The most dangerous part of this phrase is that it keeps you tied to the past. You replay mistakes, you relive choices, you obsess over the years gone by. But the past cannot be changed. The past is gone. What you hold in your hands is the present. And the present is always the starting line. The moment you choose to act, you reset the clock. You take back the power that you gave away to regret. Think of this. The future doesn't ask how long it took you to get started. It only responds to the seeds you plant today. Whether you are 20, 40, 60, or beyond, you still have the same 24 hours in front of you as anyone else. And those hours can be used to build, to learn, to grow, to begin again. It is never too late to change direction. It is never too late to rewrite your story. It is never too late to live with intention. When you release the phrase, it's too late, you awaken hope. Hope that energizes you, hope that sharpens your focus, hope that pulls you forward instead of dragging you back. That hope fuels action, and action creates results. And those results, no matter how small at first, remind you that time is not your enemy. It is your ally when you use it wisely. So stop letting regret dictate your future. Refuse to whisper the lie that your chance has passed. Say instead, the time is now, because the time is now, right here, right where you are. You still have breath, you still have energy, you still have possibility. And as long as you do, it is never too late to rise, to start, to become everything you were meant to be. Another phrase that quietly erodes your potential is, that's just my luck. It sounds casual, almost humorous, but each time you repeat it, you strengthen a belief that life is working against you. You create a story where you are the victim of fate, where the universe is conspiring to hold you down, where no matter what you do, things will go wrong. And when you live inside that story, you stop trying because you've already decided the outcome will be disappointment. This phrase is dangerous because it programs your mind to search for evidence of misfortune. Psychology calls this confirmation bias, the tendency to notice what reinforces your beliefs while ignoring what challenges them. If you believe you have bad luck, you will see only setbacks, failures, and struggles while dismissing the blessings, opportunities, and victories right in front of you. Slowly, your focus narrows until your whole life feels like proof that you are cursed. But the truth is, your life is not cursed. It is shaped by where you place your attention and how you choose to respond. Every time you say, that's just my luck, you strip yourself of responsibility. You hand over control to chance. But responsibility is not a burden. It is your greatest power. Because if life is only about luck, then you are helpless. But if life is about choices, effort, resilience, and perspective, then you are powerful beyond measure. You cannot control everything that happens, but you can control how you meet it, what meaning you give it, and what you build from it. The subtle poison of this phrase is that it lowers your expectations of yourself and your future. If you believe your luck is bad, why aim higher? Why risk more? Why fight harder? You begin to shrink your dreams down to match your fears, and you call it realism. But realism without hope is just surrender. And surrender leads to a life half-lived, a life where you stop reaching because you've already decided the world will slap your hand away. The antidote is to replace that's just my luck with life is teaching me. Suddenly, the setbacks are no longer curses, they are lessons. The failures are no longer proof you're doomed, they are feedback. The challenges are no longer signs you should quit. They are opportunities to grow strength you didn't know you had. This shift doesn't ignore the pain, it reframes it. It allows you to extract power from the very moments that once made you feel powerless. When you release the idea of luck controlling your life, you step into a mindset of ownership. You begin to see that every setback carries a seed of growth. Every closed door forces you toward another. Every fall builds muscles for the climb ahead. You start to recognize that the difference between people who rise and people who stay down is not luck. It is persistence, perspective, and the refusal to surrender to victimhood. So stop cursing yourself with words that strip away your strength. Stop saying, that's just my luck. Start declaring, this is my lesson, this is my preparation, this is my fuel. Because your life is not written by chance. It is written by the choices you make in the face of chance. And the moment you embrace that truth, you realize you never needed luck to define you. You only needed courage.